Hey, what's going on, guys? This is your boy C Will back to you with another video, and we have, oh man, this is a game that I know it was announced a while back, but it felt like it just came out of nowhere. But we have Avatar: Frontiers of Pandora. We are playing on PC, and yeah, buddy, you seen the title? I got two gaming PCs. I had to get two because I couldn't just choose one. So we have the 7800X 3D along with the AMD 7900 XTX Sapphire Nitro Plus. This is the best of the best that you can get on AMD side. Fastest gaming processor, fastest GPU. So we got all AMD. We are going to be testing, obviously, with Rebar, Sam. You know, it's going to be on. We have the latest AMD drivers. So the latest AMD drivers. So here we have 2312.1 just released on November the 28th. And it was just check the updates just to make sure. Yep. So that's installed. And if we go here, I have hardware info 64 because I just want to show you the RAM, you know, just so you could be able to see. Now, for you all that do not know, I have the 7800X 3D on a -25 when it comes to the curve optimizer with PBO. So that's going. So, you know, the boost clock pretty much, you know, stays around the 50 mark, depending on the actual temp. And that's like the highest that you go without having to do some BLCK overclock and stuff like that. But that's the highest pretty much that this chip is going to go. I'm using G-Skill RAM Hynix ADI. It's actually rated at 6,000, but I have it overclocked to 6,400. And so we're running, it's pretty much running, it's dual, you know, double data rate. So it says 3,200, but double that 6,400. So I have overclocked to 6,400. I have actual tune RAM timings, and this is pretty much just your primary timings this right here, but I have tuned this. So it's pretty much, it's in a really sweet spot right now when it, you know, pretty much just set out for gaming. And then I also have I got my MSI Afterburner here. I have the power limit all the way to the max with this system. And we're going to do a head to head with my newly built system, the 14900K, along with the RTX 4090 Founders Edition. So I'm actually going to go through some of the specs on that after this. But yeah, you know, playing on I have like a bunch of NVMe drives. I don't know which one the game is installed on, but it's super fast. So I think that's pretty much it. This game has a built-in benchmark, so this is going to be great. It's going to be perfect for doing the head-to-head. And then in a separate video, I'll get into some actual gameplay. But yep, let's go ahead and check out the actual 14900K and the 4090 system setup. Okay, now we have the Intel system over here. So we had a 14900K along with the RTX 4090. I actually have the power limit maxed out on the 4090, just like we did on the 7900 XTX. On the 4090, the actual power limit goes up to 133%. And so, yeah, you know, as far as wattage, 4090 can get up to, it can max out at 600 watts. If it needs to, depending on the game, depending on what's going on and stuff like that. If you see here, I also have the standard fan curve, the same one that I used on the 7900 XTX. That's on. I do have the, so let me just pull this up real quick. So, you know, on the 7800X 3D, you know, I had a curve optimizer, which is kind of like it gives it a overclock, you know, but on the 14900K, I'm actually using the Intel Extreme Tuning Utility. So this has an AI overclocker. And what's cool about this is a one-click solution. So once you hit characterize, it will, you know, pretty much look at your system and say, okay, hey, your system can run at such and such. And so in this particular case, it has on the P cores, the performance cores, 2 are set at 6.1 gigahertz to max out at, and then the other 6 cores are like 5.9. So as you can see here, they raise up, and they kind of max out. Like the bottom 6 cores will max out 5.885, and the first 2 cores will hit like almost 6.1 gigahertz. And there's like other offsets and temperature changes. It looks at a host of different things. So if I click on monitors, all of the efficiency cores are at like 4.5 gigahertz, and the actual P cores, they're all set up. So this is actually really cool. It's a one-click solution. You could be able to save the profile. So I had a profile saved, and then I can load this profile at any given point. And so basically, and then I have the actual RAM overclock. So this is the same RAM that I'm using on the 7800X3D. It's G-Skill CL30 6000 RAM, but I have it overclocked. I'm using an standard overclock profile with inside the BIOS to 6666, but it actually is 6650 megahertz with a timing of 34, 40, 40, 90. So I'm still working on learning the actual tuning when it comes to the Intel system. So haven't figured out how to do the manual timings just yet. So I'm just using one of the overclocking profiles when it comes to the RAM on this motherboard, which is pretty cool, by the way, that it has different profiles that you could be able to choose from. You could test them out, see if it works. And I found out this is the highest one that actually works, and that's stable for me because I'm actually able to get this memory up to 7200 megahertz, but it's not stable. So 6650 megahertz is the max. So I actually plan on buying some 7200 megahertz RAM at the XMP settings. But I'm going to get that at a different date. It's not at the top of my list right now. But Intel CPUs, they do scale with the actual speed of the RAM. So I do plan on getting, with the 7800X3D, the faster the RAM really doesn't mean anything because of the cache that's included on the X3D chips. So it was just kind of like just a bonus on the AMD system. But here, it does mean something. So that's what I had the system set at, and it's been working wonders. It works great. And so, yep, let's get into the game. Okay, so we had the AMD system that's up and ready now, 7900 XTX. And so all of the overlay information is up at the top right-hand corner. We have the temps, the usage, the clock speed, the wattage. I think I talked about this already, but I had a power limit maxed out. It was like an additional 15% on the 7900 XTX. Normally, it gets up to maybe about 400 watts regular, but that's where we are right now. We're playing at 3440 by 1440p ultra wide. This is the fan percentage usage and the actual RPM. We have the VRAM. This is the allocated amount. Then we have the VRAM clock speed, the 7800X3D temp usage, clock speed, wattage usage. And then we have the system RAM and the FPS. So make sure that you keep an eye on this. This is the current FPS, the average FPS, and then the 1% lows. And we have the frame time graph. And let's take a look at some of the settings that we're going to be taking a look at today. I pretty much, again, we're playing at 21:9. This is like going forward, because of my Alienware. Now let me make sure I get this model right. It's the AW3423. Oh my gosh. It's the AW3423DW. I think that's right. Anywho, did a video on this absolute beast of a monitor, probably the best display I've ever used for a gaming monitor. But we're playing at 21:9, so all of my people that's that want to see ultra wide content, here we go. And then we have 175 hertz. That's the max hertz for the monitor. And we come down here, regular template upscaler. We may take a look at FSR3. I'm not sure if I'm gonna do that in this video because we're gonna be doing some side by side. But for right now, we're going to do native, and I may do FSR3. Scaling mode. We have that off. So no additional scaling, everything native. VSync is off. This is super important if you want to max out your GPU. because sometimes depending on the actual usage of the GPU and like your monitor, FPS, if you have VSync on, that could cap your FPS, which would lower the usage of the GPU, and the GPU is what we're really testing. Frame rate limit off, and so we're good to go on that. Graphics, it says custom. I set this originally to this ultra, but I turned off motion blur. Everything else is set to the max settings. Yep, everything else is on max. And I think the only other thing that I have that's going to stay off. And so yeah, we should be good to go. Okay, we got the Intel system here, and as you can see up here at the top right hand corner, we have the system overlay, MSI Afterburner. So we had an RTX 4090, the temp, the usage, the clock, the wattage, the fan usage percentage, and the fan RPM on the GPU. And of course, we have the 4090 maxed out on the power usage, and then we have the VRAM, the allocated amount, and then the actual clock speed, the 14900K, the temp, the usage, the clock speed, and the wattage. We have the system memory, the CL34, 6650 megahertz, and then we have the current FPS, average, 1% low, and that's what that represents. The current FPS, the average, the 1% low. And then we had a frame time and a graph. Let's take a look at these settings. So we see here we're playing at full screen aspect ratio. We're using my Alienware OLED monitors on ultra wide, 21:9 native. So native settings, 3440 by 1440p, 175 hertz. We actually are switching this back to temporal anti-aliasing. And then the scaling mode, we're going to turn that off. So no upscaling. We're going to look at native first, and then we'll swap over to FSR. And then VSync is off, so no capping of the frame rates. And we are going to hit apply. Then graphics. I actually used the Ultra preset, and I just turned off motion blur. So everything here is just set to max. Shadow price is off, but everything else is maxed out based off of the Ultra preset. And let's take a look. Okay, so we have the native 3440 by 1440, no FSR. Let's take a look. All right, so we had a side by side. Now I'm just gonna stop this real quick. I did notice that the 4090 with the 14900K loaded first, and so this is real time. I started where I clicked on benchmark at the same time. I didn't adjust anything else in regards to the to the editing of the video. So everything that you see here is full on. This is just both systems, loading up the benchmark, and it's going all the way through. And I am noticing, so obviously there's definitely a performance difference in between these two. And this part of the benchmark is definitely, so I'm gonna stop right here. So this part of the benchmark is definitely a action sequence. And so here I'm noticing, all right, so the 7900 XTX at quality settings at 3440 by 1440p, barely averaging 60. And the 1% low is definitely dropping below 60 FPS. And so, that's with the 7900 XTX maxed out. We got the VRAM. The VRAM allocation, this is something I've noticed, with AMD GPUs, is that the VRAM allocation is usually a lot higher than it is for the 49. They both have 24 gigabytes of VRAM, but the AMD GPU is definitely a little bit higher. And also, looks like this, the system RAM is pretty much around the same. So yeah. Oh, one more thing. Look how much more the 14900K is consuming in terms of power. That's crazy. But the 7900 XTX is consuming less power than the 4090. How about that? Okay, so we got the second part of the sequence coming up. And again, the reason why it's behind now is because initially it was behind. So this is a simulation of what we would consider as flying. So this is actually pretty cool. Let me stop it right here. So in this particular situation, 7900 XTX is doing a lot better. Still dropping in the 1% lows, but the 4090 is significantly higher. I can't front. We were talking about that's about 30 FPS higher, which is crazy. But it is what it is. So what a lot of times, what a lot of people don't know is how powerful the 4090 is when you match it up with a CPU that could push it. And the same thing with the 7900 XTX. It's pretty powerful when you have a CPU that could push it. And both of these CPUs are pretty much they're neck and neck. They trade blows, but they're both pushing the actual, the 4090 and the XTX um, to its limit. So it's 99% usage, 100% usage, and yeah, here's the results. Here's what you get. So a lot of times you won't see this because in the side by sides they may use the same system, but what we're looking at right now is the best of the best for AMD. Matching a AMD CPU with AMD GPU. That's the best of the best that you can get with AMD. And then when it comes to, we don't have that same type of situation when it comes to Intel um, and Nvidia because two separate manufacturers. So if you're, running a 4090 and you want to see the best that you get, outside of using, 1700X3D, maybe you need to do more stuff with your CPU as far as like production work and stuff like that. Um, Here you go. Here's your kind of your head to head to show you, okay, hey, here's the best that you get with all AMD. Here's what you get with a 4090 and Intel. And so on this third run, now we're seeing, okay, hey, here's what it's like to go through the jungle. And I can't wait to actually play this, to actually just, play the story out. But what we're seeing here, the jungle scene, I'm pretty sure is pretty tough. But not as tough as some stuff right here. So it seems like even in the jungle, it actually does pretty well, better than the actual action sequence that we saw the first time. And so we're on the XTX, we're still above 60 FPS. So this would be interesting to see. I'm pretty sure 4K. Now 3440 by 1440p is less stressful than 4K, but still higher than 1440p because it's more pixels. And so it's still tough to run at this resolution. But using ultra wide is awesome. And this game supports the ultra wide, as you can see. But what's interesting though, again, is that the action sequence, seems like it's a lot more tougher on the GPU than the jungle. So that's interesting. Okay. And here you have it, the side by side. So this actually averaged, if you ran this benchmark yourself, this third line right here is the FPS line. The first one is like the CPU or GPU. I can't remember which one. I think the first one is like the CPU, then GPU, then this is FPS. This is the important one. So with the 7900 XTX, it averaged 66. The minimum was 50 and the max was 86. This is the important one here because this probably, more than likely will be a gameplay experience, as you go through. So if you have dips and stuff like that, then, there you have it. Then on the 4090 with the 14900K, the average was 93. The minimum was 74, max 115. Again, the minimum is the most important one because that's going to be a gameplay experience. And so with that being said, we definitely are, you're in a situation where this is pretty much about in the lows, 20 to 30 frames per second. So that's a big leap, when in terms of your gameplay experience and, the type of monitor that you're using. So let's take a look at FSR3. Okay, now let's check out FSR3. So if we go down here to temporal upscaler, I think if we change, let's see, if we change this to, AMD FSR3, we're going to leave frame generation off. Scaling mode, we're going to change this to fixed. Scaling quality is going to be on quality. There's another option for ultra quality, but we're just going to leave this on quality. So this should render, well, we're playing at ultra wide. So I'm not for sure exactly what the actual, what it's going to, I'm not for sure exactly what the render resolution will be, but it's going to upscale it back to 3440 by 1440p, which is ultra wide. So, all right, we're good to go here. In all of the graphics, let's see. Is that going to keep what I just did? Let me make sure. FSR3, quality, fix. Okay. And graphics is going to stay the same. Everything, I just had motion blur off. Everything else is maxed out. Didn't mess with anything. It's like the default ultra preset. So, all right. And let's take a look. FSR3. Okay, so let's take a look at FSR. So to turn on FSR, we have to go back here to video, scroll back down to the temporal aliasing and turn that to AMD Fidelity FX Super Resolution 3. There's also an option for DLSS. We're going to test that in a separate video. So we turn that on and then we go down here to scaling mode, turn that to fixed, and then VSync is off. Scaling quality, we're going to leave that on quality. And the reason being is because there's also ultra quality, but quality should render the actual video. It's going to render at a lower resolution, but it should upscale it back to the 3440 by 1440p. All right, let's hit apply. And for graphics, everything stays the same. All right, let's take a look. And there you have it. The 4090 with the 14900K is definitely loading the game faster, or the benchmark rather, faster than the 7900 XTX and the 7800 X3D. Interesting. Now we have both GPUs using FSR3 quality mode, and there's still a gap, but the gap kind of closes. So we're averaging 83 and 119. So that's about 17 plus 20. So that's about, it's still about 37 FPS gap when it comes between the two systems. And so that's definitely very interesting. Very interesting. Okay, it's something I just noticed, and I hate to see it, but switching between the scenes. You see how this drops to 2 FPS? And, on the, for the 1% lows, and then over here, it dropped to 30 on the 4090. So on the XTX, it dropped to 2. On the 4090, it dropped to 30. Usually this has to deal with the CPU. And, usually, but I can't pinpoint that down whether it's the CPU or the GPU without testing the same GPU on both systems to kind of rule it out. But it's very interesting to see how when it switches the scenes, how it drops the FPS. So now I will tell you, my monitor gets up to 175 uh, hertz, and so if I'm playing this, I mean, it looks great. FSR3. If I'm playing this, I'll probably use upscaling just to get the fluidity, especially on the 7900 XTX. So if I'm using this, I'm definitely using upscaling. FSR3, I'm using it. If I'm on the 4090, I have a couple of options. I'm still getting over 100 FPS, so or close to it. Depending on the actual scene, that works. But definitely, if I'm using a XTX, I'm using upscaling. And just stopping this here, that's a huge swing. So we're going from 109 for the average, uh, 142, 109 again. That 30 something frames. That's the gap that we're seeing in performance. 87 on the 1% lows, 76. That's about 10 FPS. So that does make a difference, you know. So that's a win for the AMD system for the 1% lows. So let's see how this finishes out. Okay. Um, so on the internal benchmark, um, I did notice something. The minimum FPS that it shows is not the 1% lows. That's for sure. So I don't know how they measure that, but the average is 96 using FSR3. Quality minimum 73, max 119. And then with the 4090 and the 14900K, average 137, minimum 103, max 185. So again, we're looking at that. It's about 30 something frames. It's the difference in performance in between these two, even at FSR3 quality mode. So I think that's the same thing, same, difference in performance that we were seeing at native quality as well. It was about 30 something frames. So very interesting to see the difference in performance in between these two graphics cards and two CPUs. But here you go. So, this is just one game, but if you have an all AMD system and you wanted to get the top of the line, here's the performance in Avatar on your left. And then on your right, if you have a 4090, you could still pair up a 7800X 3D with a 4090 if all you do is game. But if you do anything remotely outside a game, definitely get a better experience with the 14900K, matching that up with the 4090 or 13900K, because they're pretty much similar CPUs. And so, yeah, you know, it varies. But let me know what you think down in the comment below about this comparison. If you want to see more comparison videos like this, make sure that you hit like, hit subscribe, hit the bell so you receive all my notifications. Let's get this video at least to 100 likes, and so we could be able to do more of them. I see y'all in the next video. Peace.